in the upper right. He's for the Shopify Rebellion. He's probably the best player online. It's Byun. And at the bottom left, in the blue, for the Freak of Freaks. Well, he's stats. The Shield of Auir returns, and that's pretty exciting. He's been back for a while. I think he came back late last year, early this year, something like that, like right before Katowice. So clearly he was not going to be playing in Katowice. I mean, that was pretty obvious. But it's exciting to see him start to play in tournaments more. He was signed back to the Freak of Freaks, unlike TY. He's actually, he took down Solar 2-1, and he took down a Protoss, I think, in the Wardy TV Korean Royale Group B. But taking down Solar 2-1 is actually really impressive, considering the fact that Solar quite often will go and take game. Well, actually, will often take series off of Solar or off of Hero. In fact, Solar beat Hero 3-1 in KSL 3. As a Hero is turning into a bit of a Kong of the KSL, actually. And it's only been 2 games or 2 finals that he has been in, but both times he has been dispatched 3-1 by Solar and Maru. So I don't know whether that is a Kong of the KSL. I don't know whether that is just him being a little bit not great, struggling a little bit against onside players in particular. I don't know. But I do know that often it's been giving us some pretty good games, so that's all that really matters. That being said, the whole point here is stats taking down Solar is rather impressive. But Byun is going to be a very different story because, well, PvT has been pretty rough for Protoss players, really ever since Katowice. Or I guess maybe before Katowice, ever since the most recent patch. And why is that, you might ask? And it's pretty simple. Protoss have lost so much of their defensive capabilities in like that 6 to 10 minute range. Shield batteries have been nerfed, is really the big one there. And on top of that, Terran have more aggressive options. Although, as I say that, Byun is doing something that, is he second, third racks here? Yeah, probably. Byun is doing this thing that is not relevant to the discussion I'm having, but we'll talk about that as the second and third barracks go down right now. But anyway, you lose shield battery. Ravens are almost always a part of the majority of Terran builds because you can afford them and a tank. And then there's some other things that I'm forgetting as well that just really make life hard. But for now, Byun is doing a pretty fun build that he has been messing around with. Clem has done it some, where you get a 220 third base. So like really, it's a Reaper expand or Reaper double expand. It's the quickest third command center you can possibly get. And then behind that, he adds 2 more barracks, 1 to 2 more barracks. It seems like he might be going on the track for 1 here. It very much depends on what he wants to do. Although that's, okay, never mind. Okay. I should never second guess myself. The amount of times you're right, and then you're like, well, maybe he's doing a variant, and then you just get a little ahead of yourself. Regardless, this is a 3 racks play coming out of Byun off of off of a very quick third barrack or a third factory, third command center, which is super cool. So let's talk about what this gives the Terran. It means they have very quick economy. They're able to get triple mule. They're able to get triple scan if it's a DT play. They're able to get triple SCVs out on the map very quickly. Great. That's fine. It also means that they have a ton of production on the map behind this. Three barracks play with, well, 1 to 2 tech labs. I'm pretty sure it's 2 tech labs. Anyway, so you get stim, you get combat shields. You get 2 Marines, 2 Marauders at a time, whatever you want. That means you have a lot of early game units. Like, okay, great. You know what? There's got to be some downside here, and there is. Your tech is pretty heavily delayed compared to what a Terran might normally go for. Your factory is slow. Your eBay is actually kind of right on time, but your factory is slow. Your starport's even slower. So you get away with a lot of stuff, and it is pretty damn vulnerable to early game aggression. Classic, for example, really enjoys this. It's almost a max pact where he'll build his first gateway at home, but the second gateway across the map, rally stalkers across, and start to put a lot of pressure on the Terran natural. And well, the Terran just spent 450 minerals on building a command center. They don't have a lot of money to defend that. So those are like your tech, your tier 1.5 tech, your mid game tech is often pretty late, or is later than it might otherwise be. and you're maybe a little bit more vulnerable to some early game aggression. So those are kind of the two key points. But in general, it's one of those things that is just really strong if you get away with it. So now Classic's going to scout everything. Third barracks, starport just about done. He's not going to be able to get the SCV on that bunker. And he sees the third base as well. So this is everything that Classic does not want to see. You know, he has missed in part one of his punish timings. Although, in fairness, to punish this build properly, it feels like you almost need to blind counter it, right? At least to punish it with aggression. And of course, the other way you can do this is because the way Byun actually tends to play this, you think of this as something that is going to be, wow, 3 barracks aggression, running across the map at 4 minutes when stim is done, or 5 minutes when stim is done, whenever that is. Byun actually, at least on this map, because this is altitude, he's going to play it much more defensively. He's got his third base on the map before 6 minutes. He's not running across the map, maybe with +1 combat shields, concussive shells, but in general, you know, he's kind of staying at home. And so, of course, the other way, if Stats had the read here, the other way that Stats could look to punish this is to try to be as greedy as possible. Take that third base, chrono out probes for forever, maybe even take a fourth. Although, considering the fact that shield batteries have been nerfed pretty heavily, maybe not that. So now, let's take stock of where Byun is here, as he does move out with that first 2 sets of medevacs. He's got 4 Marauders, 23 Marines. No tanks, no Widow Mines, no Ravens, right? We talk about why this, where this build has weaknesses, because as cool as it is, that is important to talk about, there is, again, no tech in this army. The drop's going to find this wall, and I fear that this wall from Stats may actually kind of fight against him here, as the entire army won't be able to fight. But actually, no, there are gaps. So never mind. That is brilliant SimCity coming out of Stats here. Look at it. If the buyer wants to stim in, they have to run through these, what are these? I think 2 alleyways. I don't think you can get through here. So you have to stim through 2 little alleyways, while Colossus and you have this ready-made concave, although less ready-made now. Stats' SimCity is really cool. But of course, you know, Byun picks up, runs away, and the Phoenix aren't quite able to punish the way they would like, and well, the game goes on. Rather static early game. Byun gets away with a lot, though. Again, he's only down 2 workers on the Protoss at 7:30 yet, which is kind of insane if you look at it, if you want to think about it like that. That being said, though, again, this is just... Actually, it's not even 4M, it's 3M. Well, okay, never mind. 2 Widow Mines. It's 4M, technically. Running across the map. Again, lacking those tanks, lacking those Vikings, lacking those Ravens, lacking a ton of Widow Mines. Really, Byun is going to try to make it work with the bio, which is one of the reasons why this build, this style, can be so powerful for Byun. He is probably by far, he's got to be one of the best pure bio players in the world. But now he's going to try to stim in onto this gap between the natural and the third that is so hard to defend. The Colossus are there. They're well positioned. And Stats, while we don't know, I think this is my first game that I've cast of Stats since he's come back from the military. So I don't really know what Stats is, how good Stats is right now. I don't know what his form is like. But there's one thing, though, that Stats has always been good at, and that is his ability to just defend. Showtime, of course, in the West is known as Demauer. He's the wall. He's the guy that bends and does not break, very rarely takes damage from a ton of aggression. Well, Stats is that up to 11, has traditionally been. Now, we can't speak to where he is right now. I don't know. But, I mean, we're just seeing the small things. He's got great position defensively. A probe on the low ground of the ramp so he can be aware if Byun tries to stim up. So there we go. Stats is now aware. Rotates on over to defend the third base. But Byun is pretty quick in here. Shield battery will go down. Byun gives the position up, though. But his army is so big right now because his production is so quick that he cancels the 4th base anyways. So Stats, he's got 3 bases. But 3 bases are not why altitude is so painful. It really is because of this 4th. Look how far you have to travel between the 4th base, where Stats tried to take the base, and the 3rd. If you are trying to defend both spots, as Stats is, I mean, this is his positioning. The Colossus on the left side, Disruptors in the middle. Well, it takes, even if you know the army's coming, you don't have enough time to rotate. So defending that one is really hard. As this medevac, oh, okay, or the War Prism seems like it was able to recall on out. Very nice there, Stats. Get a couple SCVs, get a full scout, move from there. But Stats' 4th base is behind Byun's. And that is a little bit awkward. As a Protoss player, you always want to be up about one base on the Terran most of the time. I mean, there are exceptions to this rule. For example, when we're talking about Phoenix Colossus play, Stats does not have an observer with this army. Oh, well, you know, you can friendly fire a Stalker, and then that's going to be fine. Shout out to the bug, by the way, when this patch was first getting put out, where Colossus could not friendly fire, so they had no way of killing. They couldn't do the put a Stalker forward, kill the Widowmine type of thing. But Byun now has his entire army together on the right side. Now he's going to scan out, realize that there are, what is that, 5 Disruptors, 3 Colossus, tons of charge lots, 2-1 done on this Protoss. Byun does not want to make the move right now. In fact, he will rotate on the left side where he's going to find a bunch of Zealots, but the Zealots are going to find him as well. So Stats backs up, and now, oh, he's been dragged out of position. 6 workers are going to fall here. Stats, how are you going to take the fight? Now, he seems to have split fairly well. Archons underneath the Vikings are going to be pretty nice, and Zealots from the left side are going to try to force field this army in, but Disruptors are not going to get what the hits that they need. Zealots on the right side chase down. So it seems like Stats has the right side won, but the left side, he's going to lose that base. Disruptor shot is nice, but Byun picks up, runs away. Well, you know, not enough room in the medevacs. So Stats, well, now he's got a big fire to put out here. 4 Ghosts, a couple Marauders in the main base, but he's going to just try to end the game right now. Archon, Zealots on the other side. Colossus joining the fray. But again, there are Vikings and Stats. He's just losing stuff. He's got 9 Zealots warping in on the other side. 3 Vikings on the way at a time from Byun. And by the way, the fact that Byun is building Vikings right now is kind of insane. The man, on interviews, has literally said that he does not like Vikings and will almost refuse to make them. So seeing him realize that, okay, maybe this is a game I do need Vikings is kind of cool. But Stats is 4th and lift on Byun's 3rd. That's fine. Stats is currently losing his main base. Vikings are going to try to find their way. EMPs will blanket this army. Disruptors are going to whiff there. And now the Vikings are just unfettered. Stats has clicked the planetary down. He's going to kill it. But is that really worth it? The Vikings, well, they're going to kill the Colossus. And now this army from Stats is, oh no, the Widowmine's on the left side. I didn't see him. And that's a bunch of Disruptors that now hit the deck. So, well, yeah, there's going to be a recall. 14 SCVs have gone down, but 19 probes. Byun is up 20 workers. That's a nice force field, but it's not going to matter here. And more importantly, the entirety of Stats' production is shut down. So now Byun on 3 bases. Stats, he's got 3. He's got a 4th one on the way, building 2 Colossus at a time, but he's only on 40 probes. And we do need, he has the money for it. I actually don't know why he's not rebuilding. In general, I was going to say his macro slipped, but it's really because all of his gateways were depowered, as now the army's going to move in, but there are Disruptors here. So that's not going to work out super well. But it seems like Stats, I want to say it seems like Stats is stabilized, but his army, well, actually, he's only down about 30 army supply. He's got 2 Colossus just about done. The Viking count is still 7, though. That's more than enough. That is absolutely a fine amount of Vikings to be able to have what you need, and he's building Archons. There are Ghosts on the field. This is 2-2 bio. He's down an upgrade. He's building Archons against Ghosts and Widowmines. Give Stats a little time, and he's going to be able to build an army. But I don't know that it is the army that he needs. So probes are now getting remade. The addition of Liberators is kind of an interesting read from Byun in that, well, hold that thought, because Byun now into the natural, he's going to find a bunch of Stalkers. They're not going to do much more than serve as a bit of a speed bump. As Disruptor shot flanking, my God, their Stats finds exactly what he wants, but it seems like he's going to lose the 4th base anyways. Too distracted by this heavy push from Byun into the natural. Honestly, I think it's worse to lose the 4th base here than the natural, which is not really mining, and it's expensive anyways. Ghost EMP everything. 15 more probes hit the deck. And yeah, Stats is equal in army supply. But just because he's equal in army supply does not mean that he's in a good position in this game. Byun can remax, Stats really can't. And it's interesting here watching Stats, because again, Stats has GSL titles to his name. He has Katowice finals to his name. He is one of the greatest Protoss players to ever touch this game. But he's also back from a year and a half in the military, and he's been playing StarCraft for like 2-3 months now. So it's interesting because we're watching his play, and we're seeing old school proclivities that may or may not match up with the current meta, with how the game is most optimally played. We're seeing him do some things really well, and we're seeing him do some things that are at a much lower level than we would expect. In general, this has meant that he is now down pretty heavily in this game against Byun, but it's kind of interesting seeing what parts of his game, as all those Widow Mines from earlier, they find so much. Now, the Liberators are sieging up. Stalkers are doing a good job of knocking them down. Disruptors, Byun is going to split away from those as well as he would like. Zealots join the fray, but at this point, Stats' army is dead. That's going to take a miracle to make this happen. The Vikings are not even really contested. The Disruptors, well, they're dead. The Vikings are dead. Well, the Vikings are alive. The Colossus are dead. And Byun, he takes a 1-0 lead. In the bottom right, in the blue, he's up a game in the series, down a game in the series. What am I saying? It's Stats. And in the upper left, in the red, up one game off just relentless multitasking, punishing Stats for his old slow hands. It's Byun. So game one, we saw Stats play a very defensive style. He opened Phoenix Colossus. He had to deal with Byun starting his natural or his third base command center at 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Like, Byun was greedy as hell. Stats played very defensively, and it was just a couple moments where he didn't have his army quite split properly, and Byun very much took the end of it. So what does Byun go for in this game number 2? Now, for the start of it, I'm going to assume that on Dragon Scales, on a much shorter map, there we go, factory down. Yeah, it's double gas, actually. What am I saying? We're not going to see the really quick third base 3 Rex type of idea. Instead, Byun does get that second gas. He's got the factory quicker. He's going to have the starport quicker. And this opens into all manner of things, whether this is a Widow Mine drop or Hellion drops, although we haven't seen that nearly as much recently. You can go into Banshee play or something, but in general, whatever this is going to be from Byun, it is going to be a little bit more heavy on the aggression, we can assume. Now, Stats, on the other hand, we don't really know too much just yet. It's 2 minutes in. Gonna have to keep an eye. Actually, wait, did he? Yeah, never mind. There's the Stargate. Okay, I was about to say, I was looking at the natural because in my brain this was a PVZ, even if I saw the Terran, even if I know Byun is not a Terran, or Byun is not a Zerg. And I was looking at the natural. I'm like, man, is there nothing there? Is this a raw Nexus? But no. What am I saying? I spent 12 hours editing the Niners News Network yesterday, and I'm very proud of that video, by the way. You should check it out. I'll be doing that every week, a weekly StarCraft news show to get you caught up on everything that has happened in the scene, at least all the major news that has happened in the scene, if you missed anything. At a decently high production value. I'm pretty proud of it. I spent a long time teaching myself some Adobe After Effects for the intro, but yeah, it's but anyway, apparently my brain is not working as quickly as I would like right now. But regardless, Stats is going to open up Phoenix once again. Now, given the fact that given that this is Dragon Scales, I would like to see Phoenix Colossus. In that, let's talk about this. And I know I've talked about it before, but we're going to talk about it again. Dragon Scales is a map that has this high ground platform outside of the linear third base, outside of the natural. And that can be a pretty scary pushing position if you don't have vision or if you rely on actual getting into melee range to get damage done. So if a Terran's going to sit there and stim down and kind of bait things out, you don't want to go Phoenix Charge, because the Charge lets then have to run into the army. It's a meat grinder. It doesn't work super well. On the flip side, if you go Phoenix Colossus, you can actually take the fight up the high ground And more importantly, because Byun has opened a much more standard build, right? 2 Widow Mines. We got a Raven on the way, a tank as well. Thank you very much, Raven Gas nerf. Or Raven Gas buff, I guess. Widow Mines are now going to burrow up here. Phoenix not quite in position, so it's going to be 2 dead probes. Beyond all the Unburrow Rebirth, but that actually gives an opportunity. Both are going to get lifted. Well done there, stats. Pouncing on the opportunity. Stalker, only 1 is firing. That's a little bit annoying, but the Phoenix will arrive, and it's going to go down. Okay. Anyway, moving forward, let's talk about why you want to go Phoenix Colossus, as that is exactly what Stats is doing. Because of the Raven gas buff, right? Yeah, Raven's cost, I want to say it's 50 less gas. You can always afford a tank and a Raven on a 1/1/1 opener as the Terran, which is great, because then you're safe from any sort of Blink Stalker aggression. You can start to pound out more tanks if that's what you need. And you can get that Raven, which is good for harass, but also it does a ton of power. It gives you a ton of power in pushing across the map and hitting those 6:30 to 7:30-ish minute timings. Okay, so we know that the Terran is on most openers is going to have tanks, and he's going to have Ravens. Why does that mean you want to open Phoenix Colossus on this map? Well, what it means is, if you are playing this properly, and you have Phoenix Colossus play, you can posture on the ramp itself. Play right on the low ground, kind of right here. And then when the Terran pushes forward, you force the fight. Terran then has to spend their energy on the Raven to shut your Colossus down. You force field that ramp off, you fight backwards, and it just makes life, it takes all the power out of the push, because then the Raven doesn't have the energy it needs, and, well, the fight is effectively won at that point. The Terran can't push, you earn yourself a mid-game. So from that perspective, that appears to be at exactly what Stats is getting set up in, and of course, this is Phoenix Colossus, and that means that the third base is a little slower than it might otherwise be. Stats is only up 6 workers right now. His third base only done at the 6-minute mark. And that's just how this build goes. And in doing so, by keeping your Nexus that slow, you get two Colossus out, third one on the way, maybe even done, depending on quite how quickly the Terran is pushing. And considering this is pretty much the typical 7:30 timing, 3-1-1 +1 stim combat shields, all done at that 7:20, 7:30 mark. Well, he's gonna have 3 Colossus out. Or the third one is going to be just about done, depending on quite how efficient his economy is, or quite how efficient, or depending on just how efficient his production is. And that means that Stats, theoretically, and obviously this is execution based, but from the build order perspective, and considering the map is as it is, this is looking pretty good for Stats here. So here comes Byun's push, though. It's 7 minutes. Third Colossus is about a third of the way done. Extend Thermal Lance is done. And by the way, this is a pretty anachronistic style of Phoenix Colossus. In fact, even more so. It's only 4 Phoenix here. And now the Colossus on the high ground, trying to bait out that shutdown. But here's the problem with everything I talked about. I didn't notice that Byun had his second Raven. So there we go. He lets them down the ramp. Shutdowns on 2 Colossus. Force fields are not going to hit. Not quite. And now the Phoenix, they lift a Marauder, they lift a Cyclone, but there is not enough here, not just yet. And the second shutdown on the Colossus means that Byun finds his way into the natural, but still not a ton of damage. But yeah, these Colossus are just lasting so long without being able to do anything. Probes get pulled away, 11 of them will fall. But Byun, honestly, that's not a ton of damage here. And now the Colossus, they can fire. Third one is not out just yet because, well, the pylon was killed. But from the start here, now this final drop, it sounds like it's probably going to do a little bit more, 5 more probes at the deck. But from the initial stim in, Stats handled that very well. Now, of course, he's down 22 workers and everything is gone to hell in a handbasket. But it was looking good for a second. I was a big fan. Stats handled that very well, and just the solid, 30 seconds almost, where the Colossus were just not firing. But now +1 is done. Blink is on the way. There is very little anti-air, or very little mobile anti-air available to Stats right now. He lost 3 of his 4 Vikings. And again, it feels like, I don't know. So I was going to say, it feels like we're seeing more and more of this anachronistic 4-5 Phoenix, Phoenix Colossus play. And there was a time when that was never what you saw for Phoenix Colossus. It was almost always 8, 9, 10 Phoenix. In fact, it was Stats that started doing that. That started building those more, building more and more Phoenix, because it meant you could take multiple fights. But as the meta has evolved here, as the Widowmine drop, oh, stats. Oh, last second, but it's not going to matter. 12 probes will hit the deck. He pulls a little too slow. It's honestly better at that point to not split than to do what he did. And that's also going to be a late pull here. But it seems like, well, Byun's going to unburrow, reburrow. He's happy with the damage he got. And, well, stats is very dead. As Byun untargets, retargets. How does he have the APM to spare for this as he pushes across the map? It's kind of ridiculous. He's unburrowed, reburrowed once again. The natural has not been able to mine for a solid, I don't know, 30 seconds. And yeah, Byun has build Vikings again. Just to make, in fairness, against Phoenix Colossus, you want to build Vikings because you want to knock down that anti-air. And also, maybe we will start to see Byun build Vikings more, as their damage point has been buffed by about a third. Every 0.1 seconds instead of 0.15 seconds, as Stats goes for a Hail Mary, distraction drops. Tries to force Byun back home to find some level of counter damage, but it's only 6 SCVs. He's still down 3 workers. The Vikings are going to one-shot this out of the sky. There we go. And now here comes the pressure from Byun, and given that this is Dragon Scales, well, the natural to natural is 34 seconds. The forward third of Byun is very close to Stats third base. And with the high ground here, life is about to become very complicated for Stats. And as we've pointed out some good things that he's done, it's just not going to be enough. There we go. Disables on one of the Colossus, a Disruptor as well. Byun taps the second one down. The Vikings, they're doing a great job. They're killing all their Colossus. Byun isn't even microing them because all he cares about is this bio in the natural. Stalkers are going to eventually kill these Vikings, but Stats, it gives his life in the trade. And Byun takes the 2-0. He moves on.